She was 6 years old, alone, and soaking wet in the rain. A little black girl, no one beside her, one sandal buckled, one hanging loose. A tiny teddy bear backpack pressed against her chest like it was the only solid thing left in the world. And her mama was lying unconscious on a cold sidewalk outside, collapsed from exhaustion, from hunger, from carrying too much for too long with too little. She walked into that shopping mall and she looked at every single person who passed her, and every single person looked away. Until she stopped walking, until she ran directly into the leg of a man that grown adults crossed the street to avoid. A Korean billionaire, cold, untouchable, tatuajes crawling up his neck like shadows, 3 bodyguards moving around him like planets around something that generates its own gravity. A man with files sealed behind government clearance levels most people don't even know exist. And this little girl, this tiny, trembling, beautiful little black girl, looked all the way up at him and asked the question that would change both of their lives forever. Are you the angel who will save my mommy? Every adult in that mall had already failed her. Every person with the power to help had already walked past. But she didn't stop believing. She didn't stop looking. And what happened next, what this cold, dangerous, broken man did in the next few moments, no one saw coming. Not his bodyguards, not the world, and honestly, not even him. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click Join to become a member and help our channel. She was 6 years old, and she had already learned that the world was made of people who walked past you. She had watched them all morning. The shoes mostly, because that was the level at which the world existed for Lily Carter. Heels clicking against marble, sneakers squeaking. Dress shoes so polished she could almost see her own face looking back up at her, confused and small. Nobody stopped. Nobody looked down. The shopping mall moved around her like a river moves around a single stone, without noticing, without caring, without even the courtesy of a ripple. Her mama was outside. That was the thing Lily kept coming back to. The one fact that sat in the center of her chest like something too heavy for her small ribs. Her mama was outside, on the cold sidewalk, and she wasn't waking up. And Lily had done everything she was supposed to do. She had said, "Mama, Mama, Mama," until the word stopped sounding like a word. She had shaken her shoulder the way you shake someone who was only pretending to sleep. She had looked around for a police officer because her mama always said, "Find a police officer." But there wasn't one, and the people walking past were moving too fast and looking at their phones and the sky, and anywhere that wasn't a little girl alone on a sidewalk next to a woman who wouldn't wake up. So Lily had walked inside. She didn't know what she was looking for exactly. Something in her, something very old and very quiet for a person so young, told her that the right person was in there. She didn't have a word for that feeling. She just followed it the way you follow a sound you can't quite hear but know is there. The mall smelled like perfume and new things. The floor was so shiny it looked like water. Everything was big and gold and far away, and Lily felt herself getting smaller with every step. The mochilina de ursinho bouncing against her back, one sandal clicking properly, and one just flapping loose against her heel because she'd never managed to buckle it back after the bathroom. She was trying very hard not to cry. Not because crying was wrong. Her mama said crying was brave. But because if she started now, she didn't think she'd be able to talk. And she needed to talk. She needed to find someone. She needed to find the right someone. And then the corridor shifted. She felt it before she saw it. a change in the air, the way the crowd seemed to tighten and redirect itself without anyone announcing why. People moved aside without looking at each other. A space opened up, the way spaces open up when something large and certain is moving through. Lily looked up. He was tall, very tall. Dressed in black so dark it looked like the kind of dark that doesn't reflect anything. His face was sharp and still, the way faces are when they have practiced for a long time not to show what is happening inside them. Around his neck, crawling up toward his jaw on the left side, were lines of ink. Dark shapes she couldn't name. Dragons, maybe, or letters from a language she had never seen. And they made him look like someone from a story. Not the kind with happy endings, necessarily. The other kind. 3 large men walked around him like planets around something that generates its own gravity. Everyone else was looking away from him. Willie walked directly toward him. She doesn't know his name was John Sung-jae. She didn't know that 3 governments had files on him that were sealed behind clearance levels most people didn't know existed. She didn't know that the men walking beside him had, between them, done things that would make the marble floor of this beautiful mall feel like the most dishonest surface in the world. She knew only what her mama's eyes had looked like, closed, on the cold concrete outside. She walked until she ran into his leg. She looked up. He looked down. And Lily Carter, 6 years old, 1 sandal buckled and 1 not, teddy bear backpack clutched against her chest like armor, asked the most dangerous man in the city, the only question that had ever mattered to her in that moment. "Are you the angel who will save my mommy?" The rain had not yet fallen on that fateful afternoon, but the air carried the weight of it, thick and still, pressing down on the polished floors of the mall like a hand held just above the surface of water, ready to plunge. She stood there, small and trembling, her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow cutting through the hum of escalators and distant music. And the man in black froze. Not because of the words, not exactly, but because of the way she said them, as if she already knew him, as if she had seen through the layers of silence and steel he had spent years constructing around the hollow place where his daughter used to laugh. "Are you the angel who will save my mommy?" Little did she know that at that exact moment, he was watching not just her face, but the way her left sandal flapped open with every breath she took, the way her small fingers tightened around the straps of the teddy bear backpack, the way her eyes, wide and dark and full of a trust he had not earned, held his without fear. What no one imagined was that this child, this ordinary girl with pompons in her hair and a curativo on her chin, carried within her the one thing capable of unraveling a life built on silence, on distance, on the belief that grief could be managed like a spreadsheet. "You destroyed me, Sung-jae." The voice echoed in his memory, sharp and raw, from a night 4 years ago when the rain had actually fallen, heavy and relentless, while she, his wife, his anchor, the only person who had ever looked at him and seen not the empire, not the name, not the tattoos crawling up his neck like shadows, lay broken on a hospital bed, their newborn daughter already gone, already silent. "You buried yourself in work while we were dying." And he had stood there, hands useless at his sides, unable to speak, unable to cry, unable to do anything but watch the light leave her eyes, unable to forgive himself, unable to forgive the world. And now, this child, this black girl, beautiful and fragile, her skin glowing like polished wood in the artificial light, her dress slightly crumpled, her breath coming in small, uneven bursts, stood before him and asked if he was good. What happened? His voice was low, rough, like stone dragged across stone, and even his own men flinched at the sound, for they had never heard him speak to anyone outside of commands, never heard a tone that carried anything resembling hesitation. "My mama," Lily said, her voice breaking now, tears finally spilling over, tracing clean lines down her dusty cheeks. "She fell. She said she was just going to rest, just for a second. But she won't wake up. I looked for a police officer. I looked everywhere. But nobody would help. So I came in here. Because I knew the right person was in here." The man, Chun Sung-tae, the name whispered in boardrooms and back alleys alike, the man whose decisions had shifted markets and ended lives, felt something inside him crack. Not with pain, but with the terrible, terrifying sense of recognition. He remembered holding his own daughter, so small, so new, her fingers curling around his like she already trusted him completely. He remembered promising, silently, fiercely, that he would never let anything hurt her. And he had failed. He had failed so completely that the world had gone quiet afterward, and he had let it. "You are the daughter I never knew I had." The thought screamed through his mind. Not true, not literally, but true in a way that mattered more. True in the way grief makes lies feel like the only honest things left. He did not speak again. Instead, he lowered himself, slowly, stiffly, as if his body had forgotten how to bend for anything other than duty, until he was eye level with her. His men shifted, uneasy, ready to intervene, to pull her back, to protect him from whatever this was, from whatever weakness this moment might expose. But he raised a hand, just one finger lifted, and they stopped. "Where is she?" he asked, softer now, almost gentle, and the sound of it startled even him. Lily pointed toward the exit, her hand trembling. "Outside, on the sidewalk, by the flower pot." He nodded once. Then, without another word, he reached into his coat, and every instinct in every man around him screamed weapon. But instead of steel, he pulled out a phone, spoke 2 words in a language that did not belong in this place, and turned back to her. "Hold my hand," he said. And she did. Her fingers were small, cold, but she gripped him tightly, as if she already knew that letting go would mean losing not just him, but the hope he now represented. The hope that someone, somewhere, might still believe in angels. The rain began to fall just as they stepped outside, heavy and sudden, soaking through her dress, plastering her hair to her forehead, but she did not let go. She did not look away. She walked beside him like she had done it 1,000 times before, like this was the most natural thing in the world, a little girl leading a giant through the storm toward the woman who had given her life. And behind them, the mall continued on, unaware, untouched, believing that history was made in boardrooms and battlefields, not in the quiet space between a child's hand and a man's frozen heart. What no one imagined was that this moment, this small, overlooked detail in the vast machinery of a life, would become the first crack in a wall that had stood for years, and that once a crack appears, no amount of silence can hold back the light. "I love you," he whispered. Not to her, Not really, but to the memory of the woman who had once believed in him. But this love is forbidden. Forbidden by time, by grief, by the man I became when you left. And Lily, sensing the weight of it, squeezed his hand tighter, as if to say, "It's not too late." Claire Carter was not dead. This was the first thing the doctor said when he arrived, crouching beside her on the wet sidewalk, his hands moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who had been called to worse places than this, who had seen worse things than an exhausted woman collapsed outside a shopping mall in the rain. But to Lily, standing 2 steps back with Sung-jae's hand still wrapped around hers, the words landed like something sacred, like a prayer answered before it was finished being spoken. She let out a sound, not quite a cry, not quite a laugh, the kind of sound that only comes from a body releasing something it has been holding so tightly for so long that the release itself becomes its own kind of pain. The doctor worked quickly. Sung-jae stood still, watching, his face unreadable to anyone who did not know where to look. But his jaw was tight, and his free hand, the one Lily was not holding, had closed into a fist at his side. Not in anger, but in the involuntary muscle memory of a man who had stood beside a hospital bed once before, in a room that smelled of antiseptic and finality, watching someone he loved disappear degree by degree while he remained uselessly whole. "She is severely dehydrated," the doctor said, not looking up, his voice calm and clinical and devoid of judgment. "Blood pressure is critically low. She needs immediate care, an IV drip, rest, monitoring. She has been running on empty for a long time. The body simply stopped. Stopped." The word sat in the wet air between them. Lily looked up at Sung-jae. "Will she be okay?" He did not look down immediately. His eyes stayed on Claire, on the coque bagunchado now fully undone, dark curls spread against the wet pavement, on the avental still tied around her waist, on the small coffee stain on her white blouse that told the story of a woman who had been working so hard for so long that she had forgotten to stop, forgotten to eat, forgotten that a body is not a machine and cannot simply be commanded to continue through sheer determination and love for a child. "Yes," he said finally, and then, quieter, almost to himself, "She will be okay." The medical transport arrived within 4 minutes, not an ambulance from the city system that would have taken 20, but a private vehicle, sleek and black, 2 nurses inside, already prepared. Because when Sung-jae made a call, the world reorganized itself accordingly. His men loaded Claire with careful precision, and the doctor climbed in beside her, and the door closed, and the vehicle moved, and Lily watched it go with her whole body leaning forward, as if she might follow it through sheer will alone. "Where are they taking her?" she asked, her voice very small. "Somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere warm. Somewhere they will take care of her properly." "Can I go?" He looked down at her then, really looked, and something in the looking broke something else in him, something he had not known was still intact enough to break. She was soaked through. Her pompons had gone limp, the pink darkened by rain to something closer to burgundy, one still holding its shape stubbornly, the other fully dissolved into her hair. Her dress clung to her small shoulders. Her one unbuckled sandal had finally given up entirely and was hanging off her toes by nothing but habit. She was shivering, barely, trying not to, the way children try not to shiver when they do not want the adults around them to worry. She was trying to protect him from worrying about her. 6 years old, and already she was trying to protect people. "You destroyed me," he thought, fiercely, privately, not as accusation but as confession, because that is what she had done. This child, this little girl with her teddy bear backpack and her impossible faith, she had walked into the carefully constructed ruin of his life and simply refused to treat it as a ruin. She had looked at him, at the tattoos, at the silence, at the men around him who moved like weapons, and seen something else entirely, something he had stopped believing was still in there. "Yes," he said aloud, his voice rougher than he intended. "You can go. I will take you." He removed his jacket, the perfectly tailored matte black jacket worth more than Claire's monthly rent, and placed it over Lily's shoulders without ceremony, without making it a moment, the way you do something when you do not want to be thanked for it, because being thanked would mean acknowledging that it was kindness, and he was not ready to acknowledge that yet. She disappeared into it. The jacket swallowed her whole, the hem dragging on the wet sidewalk, the sleeves hanging far past her hands, and she looked up at him from inside it with an expression of absolute, uncomplicated gratitude that made one of his bodyguards, a man who had seen things that would make ordinary people weep, quietly look away. "You are warm," Lily said, surprised, as if she had expected otherwise. He said nothing, but he did not let go of her hand. In the private car, as the city moved past the rain-streaked windows, Lily sat beside him, tiny inside his enormous jacket, the teddy bear backpack on her lap, her eyes fighting sleep and losing. And she said, without looking at him, in the drowsy and unguarded voice of a child at the edge of consciousness, "I prayed for someone to help us. I told God to send me the right person. Not just a nice person. The right one." She paused, her eyes closed fully. "I think he knew you needed it too." Sung-jae sat very still for a very long time after that. Outside, the rain continued to fall, heavy and indifferent, washing the city clean of things it could not name. And inside the car, in the quiet between a sleeping child and a man who had forgotten how to rest, something that had been frozen for 4 years began. Slowly, painfully, without permission, to thaw. Claire Carter opened her eyes to a ceiling she did not recognize. It was white, but not the white of the apartment she shared with Lily, where the paint was peeling slightly near the window, and there was a water stain in the corner, shaped like a rabbit, that Lily had named Gerald. This white was perfect, unmarked, the kind of white that costs money, that is maintained by people whose entire job is to ensure that nothing imperfect exists within these walls. The sheets beneath her were soft in a way that made her own sheets feel like a distant, rough memory. An IV line ran from her left arm to a bag hanging beside the bed, and a monitor beeped quietly at a rhythm that told her, in its mechanical and indifferent language, that she was alive, that her heart was still doing what hearts do when they are given the chance to rest. She sat up too quickly. The room tilted. "Easy." A nurse appeared at her side, gentle, efficient, pressing her back against the pillows with a firmness that allowed no argument. "You are safe. Please rest." "My daughter," Claire said, and her voice came out cracked and dry, scraped hollow. "Lily. Where is Lily?" "She is here," the nurse said. "She has been waiting for you." And then the door opened, and Lily came through it at a speed that was entirely inappropriate for a medical facility, the teddy bear backpack bouncing on her back, her pompons restored. Someone had redone them, fresh and neat, pink again and properly shaped, wearing what appeared to be an oversized hospital gown tied twice at the back, and a pair of socks with rubber grips on the bottom that were 3 sizes too big for her feet. She launched herself onto the bed with the full and fearless confidence of a child who has decided that relief deserves to be expressed physically. "Mama! Mama, you woke up! I told him you would wake up! I told him!" Claire held her daughter with both arms, pulled her in close, buried her face in the damp curls, and for a long moment she could not speak, could not do anything but hold on to the small, warm, impossibly alive weight of her child, to the proof that the world had not ended after all, that she had not left Lily alone in it. "You destroyed me," she whispered into Lily's hair, fiercely, the way mothers say things they mean entirely differently than the words suggest. Destroyed by love, by relief, by the terrifying and beautiful reality of how much this small person meant to her. "You absolutely destroyed me, baby. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I scared you." "It's okay, Mama," Lily said, pulling back just enough to look at her face, cupping Claire's cheeks in both her small hands the way she had seen her mother do to her 1,000 times. "I found the right person, just like I said I would." Claire looked at her daughter's face, the big honey-brown eyes, the curativo on the chin, the absolute and unshakable certainty in her expression. And then she looked toward the door. He was standing in it. Chon Sung-jae. In the doorway of a private medical suite in a building she had never been inside, wearing a black shirt now instead of the full suit jacket, because the jacket was somewhere else, because he had given it to her daughter without hesitation. And the thought of that alone made something tighten painfully in Claire's chest. His arms were crossed loosely, his face doing what his face always did, which was reveal almost nothing. But his eyes, dark and deep and carrying something that had no clean name, were watching Lily with an expression that was not nothing. That was very far from nothing. Claire looked at him for a long moment. "You did this," she said. It was not a question. He said nothing. "I don't know how to." She stopped. Started again. "I don't know who you are. I don't know why you helped us. People like you don't just—" She stopped again, because she could hear how it sounded, and because it was true and also insufficient, and also completely beside the point. "You are the daughter I never knew I had," he said quietly, and then caught himself, shook his head slightly, the ghost of something moving across his face. "Forgive me, I meant, she reminds me of someone." The room was very quiet. Lily, entirely unbothered by the weight of the moment, slid off the bed and walked to him and took his hand again, the way she had taken it in the mall, as if she owned it, as if hands were simply things that existed to be held when needed. "He's sad, Mama," she announced, with the devastating accuracy of a child who has not yet learned to pretend otherwise. "But he's good. I checked." Claire looked at her daughter, then at the man, then at their joined hands. His, covered in ink and history and things she would perhaps never fully know, and hers, small and certain and completely unafraid. She exhaled. "Thank you," she said simply. He nodded once. Then he turned to go, because men like him do not know how to stay in moments like this, do not know how to exist inside softness without immediately looking for the exit. But at the door he stopped, one hand on the frame, his back to them both. "Rest," he said. "Everything is handled." And he left. 3 weeks later, a white envelope arrived at the door of the apartment, slid under it quietly, without a knock, without announcement. Claire opened it at the kitchen table while Lily ate cereal across from her, legs swinging,
humming something tuneless and content. Inside was a single folded page. A job offer. A salary that made Claire read the number 3 times. And at the bottom, in handwriting that was precise and slightly angular, a single line. Your daughter has a good instinct for recognizing people. I suspect she learned it from you. Claire set the paper down on the table. She pressed her hand flat against it. She did not cry immediately. She sat with it for a moment, with the improbable reality of it,
with the understanding that the entire trajectory of her life had shifted because her 6-year-old daughter had walked into a shopping mall alone and in the rain and had looked at the most dangerous man in the city and seen, with perfect and unclouded clarity, exactly who he was underneath everything he had built to hide it. Then she cried. Lily looked up from her cereal. Good tears or bad tears? She asked, very seriously. Good, Claire managed. Very good. Lily nodded, satisfied, and went back to her cereal. And across the city, in the back seat of a black car moving through morning traffic, Jun Sung-jae sat with his phone in his hand and did not look at his emails, and did not take the call that was waiting, and did not do any of the things that the architecture of his life demanded he do in this moment. He looked out the window instead, at the city waking up around him, at the ordinary and unremarkable miracle of people simply continuing, buying coffee, walking dogs, holding children's hands at crosswalks. He thought about a girl with pink pompons who had looked at him and seen an angel. He thought about how wrong she was. He thought about how, for the first time in 4 years, he was not entirely certain of that. The car moved on. The city moved on. And somewhere in it, quiet and unhurried and entirely without fanfare, something that had been broken for a very long time began. One careful, painful, impossible degree at a time, to heal. Claire wasn't saved because she begged. She was saved because her daughter knew how to recognize who was truly good, even when the whole world had passed by without looking. And maybe that's what you need too. Not someone who makes noise, but clarity to recognize who truly deserves you. Clarity to stop explaining your worth to those who choose not to see it. Clarity to leave earlier, trust yourself faster, and never again confuse intensity with respect. If you're over 45 and tired of carrying relationships that consume more than they build, this reset was made for you. The Woman He Can't Manipulate 30-Day Reset is a 30-day guide created for women who want to restore their self-perception, rebuild their standards, and stop accepting less than they deserve. It's not about being defensive, it's about being whole. The link is in the description, in the pinned comment, or point now to the QR code on the screen. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been in a moment where everyone with the power to help simply looked away, and the only person who showed up was the one you least expected? Have you ever, like Sung-jae, built walls so high around your pain that it took someone completely innocent, someone with nothing to gain, to remind you that you were still capable of being good? And if you have ever been like Claire, exhausted, invisible, holding everything together alone, while the world moved past you without a second glance, know that your story is not over, and the right person is still capable of finding you. Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about redemption, human connection, and the quiet courage it takes to keep going, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.